Hello?
Hi. How are you?
Hey. What is so exciting?
Do you have 15, 20 minutes, something like that for me to blow your mind?
Always and forever.
Okay, cool. I went to New Jersey.
That does blow my mind that anybody would do such a thing. It didn't take 20 minutes.
The end. Okay.
The end. Everything is legal in New Jersey. Sorry. Tell me more. There has to be more. Please tell me there's more.
I went to New Jersey and I saw something. It's at a place called Sunset Beach in Cape May, New Jersey. Okay. And
Cape
it's where
May?
Cape May.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. And it's where the Delaware River meets the Atlantic Ocean over there. Okay. All right.
Okay.
And it's that point of New Jersey. It's just there.
There is no.
And
I should. Nope. There are points to New Jersey. Go on.
Why'd you say that? Oh no. Alrighty, anyway, so 150 feet from the shoreline at this Cape May Point, okay, is one of 12 ships that were created as part of the emergency fleet of concrete ships, Babs. Concrete. This is the remnants of a concrete ship.
Shall I save my questions for the end?
It's up to you. It's up to you.
What in the shiitake mushrooms is a concrete ship?
It's a ship made of concrete. Which I know, right? I see, I can feel it. I can feel it because I was thinking in my head, I'm like, that seems like a bad idea.
That doesn't seem logical.
It doesn't seem logical. And yeah, so, but there's a strong history of people building.
I do love the history that is strong.
Yes. And it's strong like concrete, okay?
Oh my God.
Not
okay, tell me what it is, please.
But there's this history of Europeans coming together or really just doing it separately by themselves, and then we hear about it and then someone hears about it and they're like, oh, I'm gonna try that. Anyway, so in 1884, there's this guy named Joseph Lambot, and
I love his name.
Lambot. Okay. Anyway, he was the manufacturer of reinforced concrete, so he built a small canoe out of concrete that floated, right? And then there was this Italian engineer whose last name is Gabellini, and he made from the years 1890 to 1896, he made these flat bottom barges and small concrete ships that sailed from Rome to Genoa.
Sailed.
Okay, they sailed.
They did real things.
They did it. And then in 1912, this Norwegian inventor, right, invented the idea of a concrete ship. So big ship that's concrete. And so in 1916, he actually designed this one, and it's called the Namsenjord. Or something. It's Jord. It's probably Jord, right? It's Namsen and Namsani Jord. I don't know. It's a lot of letters.
I love every name in this story.
It's
every
Norwegian.
Single one.
So, and that one was 84 feet long and self-propelled, and he built, he designed that, and then they built it, and it worked. And then the U.S. in 1917 built this one called the Faith. And then Germany in 1918 built one called the Annenberg, and she sailed the Rhine and other European rivers. But in 1918, World War I's going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it just so happened that, they had this shortage of steel,
They did.
And steel was how they were making ships, and, especially in the Great Great Britain and in the US, there was this shortage of steel. And, so they were like, what can we do? And, not that many years before that, this Norwegian inventor had done this big ship of concrete. So they were like, what if we did that? What if we did that? Okay. So they did. Yes.
Who is they in this scenario?
The
Allies?
It will be the Allies, I guess it's our side of World War I, and also just the specifically all of the ships that I will talk about from now on are, they were built in the US.
Okay.
As part of this emergency fleet.
The emergency.
Because they were like, it's an emergency. We need ships that are going to work, but we don't have enough
that will emerge.
Right.
From the sea.
We need emerge in the sea.
They had to emerge from the sea successfully.
Oh, we love it. So anyway, a concrete ship, right? How do you build one? Why? How do you even? What?
Why do you build?
Right?
One? Okay, you've kind of explained that part.
The why? Yes. Because also this was my struggle. Was like, I don't know if you've ever, you've gone to lakes and rivers and whatnot.
Every once in a while.
And there have been, like parking lots nearby, and maybe there's like a chunk of concrete, and it just lands in the lake or whatever. It sinks immediately. And so I was like, how? That's why it seems like such a bad idea. But then I was like, okay, but, I think the same happens if you just throw a chunk of steel in there too.
That actually was also one of my thoughts. I was like, I was awfully judgmental immediately about concrete, but I could, if I didn't know that there were boats built of metal, I could have the same reaction.
Yes. Yeah. So I was like, why is this such a hang up in my mind? Because I'm like, obviously, so I actually did look up, and steel does weigh significantly more than like pounds per foot than the concrete.
That judgmental and actually incredibly wrong.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Same. But then I was like, but maybe my brain was like just thinking things through faster than I realized it. And it was because, I'm like, but concrete is porous. Metal's not, right? The steel's not. It's not very porous. Like everything is like a little porous, right? But
definitely less than.
Right. Concrete's quite porous, but so is wood. Like they build wood ships that float very well, but that's very buoyant. So I'm like, okay,
well, it's very buoyant,
and the fact that it's like the worst of all of these things,
and they seal it.
Right. But you can just like driftwood just floats, and that's not sealed.
Fine.
I know. It's but I think concrete just seems like the worst of all these things. So I'm just like,
it does. It seems like a terrible idea.
What are they doing? Anyway, but the way they did this, and the reason why they were like, okay, we can do this, was like, obviously there was already some completed barges, right? And a concrete ship required a third less steel. But you couldn't manipulate concrete the same as you could steel. So what they had to do was like take and manipulate some steel to make a sort of a skeleton of a ship. And then build the concrete around that. Because you can't really bend it. But it was like super
you have to
brittle.
Pour it where Yes.
Yeah, they had to be very careful when they were like going in and out of port. And it was a lot of tricky stuff. The one that is in Cape May is called the Atlantus. But weirdly and interestingly, it's a U and not an I. So, Atlantus is how the ship's name is spelled.
I might be a bad person.
Okay. Tell me why.
Thought was, of course, because it was made in the U.S. Like they couldn't say it.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even think of that. That's but you're probably right, maybe. No. if we can use it. But then that begs the question, like, why didn't they do it? So Atlantis was the second ship that they made for this emergency fleet. The first was her name was Pelias. And that's not with the US in it. That's an AS. So I don't know why. I don't know why she was named such. I just know. And I have the measurements, but they're not, I don't think they're that important. What is important is that, right, so Atlantis, this is second of this emergency fleet of ships. And she entered the waterways, and this is an emergency fleet for World War I, right? She entered the waterways on December 5th, 1918, which is roughly a month after World War I ended. But she did make, at least 2, maybe more, voyages over to France and brought back soldiers. From there. So that's, she did the usefulness.
You did it!
Yeah. Yay!
Yay for you!
Yay for you!
She made the usefulness. You did it, Atlantis.
Well done. But then she was abandoned, like 2 years later in a salvage plant in Virginia. And we all thought, that's the end of it, right?
Yeah.
And obviously they were just they had all these ships that they had created, 12 of them for this. Mm-hmm. And pretty much immediately they're like, oh, steel shortage over, or at least we don't need as many ships, right? Like, JK, we don't actually need you anymore, and you're much slower and more fragile than your steel counterparts, so goodbye forever.
Goodbye forever.
So, a lot of them became, breakwaters, and one of them became a casino, and one of them became a restaurant.
Yes!
Yeah. Right? Those ones are living the high life,
you're seeing the real.
But anyway, so Atlantis is just sitting there in a salvage plant in Virginia. Do you want to know how she ended up over there in New Jersey?
I can't stop thinking about Cape May, so yes, I do want to know.
Okay, I'll tell ya. All right.
Woo!
So there's this dude called Colonel Jesse Rosenfeld. Okay.
Of course,
and he wanted to create a ferry service from Cape May to Cape Henlopen, which I think is in Delaware.
I love every name in this story.
I know, it's excellent, right? So she only had to sit in that salvage plant for about 6 years, and he purchased her, and a tugboat took her to Cape May Point. Okay, so that's how she got there.
Okay,
and they worked on trying to make her into a ferry. So they got her on moorings, right? Mm-hmm. And they cut a chunk of her off the front where they were going to attach a ferry section or something. I don't know. And this actually created the very first traffic jam in Cape May. because there's just this one little road that leads to this Cape May Point, and a bunch of people wanted to go see the ship and be a part of this and everything, and so there was 300 cars trying to go down this little road, and so traffic jam, first one ever at this point in New Jersey. In 1926.
The last one as well?
I don't think she's now very, very famous, and she's a tourist spot, Anyway, so yeah, they had her up on these moorings, and they were making her into a ferry, and they didn't apparently think about weather at all. So, yes, they didn't think about weather and how that affects the tides or anything like that.
Or concrete.
So there's this nor'easter that just comes along later that year and took her off her moorings. And
you gotta work faster, guys.
Try as they might, they just could not get her to move after that. It just was not happening anymore. So she's just sitting there. She's sitting there for 30 years. She just sits there because they can't move her. And in 30
After
years,
cutting her to pieces?
Well, yeah, somewhat. I think they had actually successfully done some sort of fusion.
Oh.
Or I don't know. I'm really confused about that because the important part is that in 1957, so 30 years later, a seam opened up on her. And by 1961, she had broken in half and the stern disappeared into the sea. And so what's there is just like half a concrete ship.
Half a concrete ship.
That they tried to turn into a ferry.
Thing. That is the only thing worse than a whole concrete ship. Is a half concrete ship.
Yeah. So that's the Atlantis. And she, you can go and visit her and you can take pictures of her and you can only see her at low tide though. Because high tide, she's underwater. She lives with the fishes.
Can you walk? There's probably not on her, huh?
I don't think so. I wouldn't.
I would not recommend it.
I imagine there's a way to get out. Like you could swim out there, right? But
there's got to be people that have like snorkeled or scuba dived or some such. They have to have done that.
She's out there with like a little gift shop. I got some postcards.
What is in the gift shop? Is there like
loads of stuff? It's like a
wreckage.
Doesn't even no,
not wreckage, but like replicas of.
No, most of the stuff in the gift shop has absolutely nothing to do with ships or her or anything like that. Most of the stuff is just like canned goods. And I got Peter a glass penguin from there. Tiny glass penguin.
There cannot be. I refuse to allow the belief that there are penguins in New Jersey. They can be anywhere else.
I mean, the real ones, you're absolutely right. But
yes.
Except for maybe in a zoo. I don't really know. But,
I think they probably have penguins in their zoo. This is going to send me weird places on the internet, I think. First of all, I want to know where the casino one is and if it's still operating. Because I want to go there.
Yes.
Even if it's in New Jersey. Where were these initially built? Did you tell me that and I lost it somewhere?
They're in the U.S. Some of them were built like on the East Coast and like in Virginia, like Newport News, I think, or something like that. And then
gotcha.
And then some of them were born.
I love that you keep almost saying born because it feels right.
Proper ladies, okay.
They had to be birthed.
They had to be birthed into the water.
It's so ridiculous. So they could emerge from the sea because they are emergency. Dang it.
Emergency vessels. Yeah. Gosh. But yeah, some of them are from California, which is odd to me, but that's just because I don't really know a lot about World War I guess.
Okay, so this is a good segue into my next thought, and it's really nothing of substance. It just makes me laugh because I do read a lot of history, and I'm going to be very upfront. World War I is not usually the era that I study in any regard. It's usually Revolution or World War II, typically.
Right.
So I know very base facts. about World War One, but just in general in wartime, and you read enough history things and you come across different wartime thought processes and cabinets making decisions and all of this stuff. You just do naturally because humans like to have wars and they like to talk about them. And I need a movie of the poor soul that had to go in front of generals and or potentially the president to be like, listen, let's talk about these ships that we need. And you said they were self-propelled?
Yes. Like they have they're steamers.
Okay.
Or they're, something else. What was the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, even that's super interesting of, if they were safe structurally, like maybe it's a good thing they ran out of time.
Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you another thing that they did is that they prefabricated all of the insides since they couldn't just build it out of like level by level, whatever. I
was there wood on
I
these
assume
ships?
There has
to be something.
There has to be,
but it doesn't sound safe, and so it almost feels like a fantastic historical anecdote. But maybe it was for the best that they weren't used.
Yeah. Like, until World War II, and then they made more, Babs.
Oh my gosh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Did you already tell me that? And I missed it. Okay.
I did.
Okay. I was wow.
Waiting for the right time.
And then they made more. Okay. When did you say she fell apart?
1957 is when like the...
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, she fell apart in the bay and they still made more, but it was after.
It was after, yeah.
Okay.
She was just immovable.
She was
immovable. She stood her ground, okay?
Shit, yes. She stood her ground underwater. Dang it.
She did. And she's still doing it. It's really fascinating. Some of the postcards that I saw at the gift shop, because those were about the only thing that had anything to do.
It had anything to do with Atlantis.
Had like a picture of like it was like two side-by-side pictures, and one of them was like shortly after she had broken apart and started sinking, and then a more modern day picture, like
the ruin
of yeah. So it's interesting to see, like, she's just sinking so slowly.
I'm genuinely impressed that full power of the tide, full come and go of the tide, because of where it sounds like she's sitting, that sometimes she is exposed and sometimes she's completely underwater, that the concrete hasn't just crumbled.
Same.
So I'm going to take this as my humbling of the day, because I was making fun of this so hard in my head, and obviously wasn't ever used as a warship, this particular one. Now I'm going to have to go look at what the heck happened in World War II with them. But
yeah.
But it still exists, so maybe it would have been fine. This is one of history's great what ifs, and I'm not going to sleep tonight. So
right, well, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I have to say, but that's a thing now, and
it is. It is.
And now you have more questions. Hooray! And
I have more questions, and I'm going to go outside and stare at the concrete until something makes sense.
Okay. So it was Polish. Random fact. It was Polish. Like a newfangled Polish concrete that they used. I don't know why that wasn't
for the World War I ones or the World War II ones.
The World War I ones.
Oh, the one ones. Nailed it.
The one ones. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for making me uncomfortable today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Bye.
Okay. Okay. Bye.